How's it going, everyone? October 26th edition of the Fantasy Fanatics MMA podcast. We got kind of like a Halloween theme going. This is our last show before Halloween. JHK's got the dark background. I got the orange background here. I'm not dressed up, but I'll save that for later in the week. Hope everyone's doing well. If you haven't watched the show before, basically, we preview an upcoming notable fight. And on this edition, we're going to be previewing the main event on December 4th between Jose Aldo, the former featherweight champion, and Rob Font. But before we get into that, make sure you hit that like button, hit the subscribe button. Also, make sure you download the Fantasy Fanatics MMA app where you can put your picks in. It is the best app in the world right now when it comes to combat sports. You can get your picks in for all cards, not just the UFC. There's PFL, there's Bellator, there's everything on there. So make sure you download that because that's what we're going to be referencing throughout today. And also, stay after the breakdown. We will be answering questions. So if you have questions, just post them in the chat right now. We'll get to them as soon as we're done the breakdown. And we'll also be giving out our underdog picks for UFC 267 at the end of the show as well. Let's get to the fight we're talking about here. And let's see if I'm able to do this properly. There we go. So there we go. It is Rob Font, Jose Aldo. We always start this card with, how did we get here? Well, here's how we got here. We got here because Rob Font got COVID. A lot of people don't know that. Rob Font got COVID. Rob Font was offered the interim bantamweight title fight. It was supposed to take place this weekend, or is taking place this weekend, between Corey Sandhagen, Petr Yan. Rob Font, as far as I could tell, was the first choice, or at least one of the choices they were looking at. But Rob had gotten COVID a few weeks prior, so unfortunately he had to decline the fight. But hey, guess what? Second place, as far as another option here, Jose Aldo, are you kidding me? Not bad for Rob Font. So Corey Sandhagen gets the title shot this Saturday, and it's Rob Font who now gets to fight Jose Aldo instead. I don't have an issue with this at all. I think it's still an awesome fight, and I think it's a good fight for both fighters. And you know what? Aldo probably was considered as well for the title shot, but we know he lost to Petr Yan last year, so no real point in sort of seeing that rematch so soon, I would think. So it's kind of a case of two guys who are ready to fight, not fight, immediately, but ready to fight and want to sort of go toe-to-toe here. So JHK, just your thoughts. And I didn't even ask how you're doing. My apologies. I hope you're doing well, but just your thoughts on how this matchup came together, because I love this fight.
Yeah, this is a great fight. It's like you said, Rob Font, he was the first choice. I asked Syed, Petr Yan's manager, and he confirmed it. He said that they went to Rob Font first, and he turned it down because, like you said, he was sick. And man, some guys would have probably just took the fight anyways, right? Even if they were sick. So at least he's honest and didn't, spread the virus to other people. But man, what... You don't get the title fight, but you get what? A legend? That's a legend, right? A legend. There's, that word legend gets thrown around a little too easily, I think, nowadays. But really, when you look at Jose Aldo, he's a legend. He's earned this spot. Jose Aldo has beaten some back-to-back. He's won back-to-back fights against really good competition. Rob Font's just been winning, right? I think he's on a 4-fight win streak. So they deserve it. I feel like if Rob Font wins this fight, I think he could get a title shot, man. I think that if they were going to give him an interim title shot, why not give him a title shot if he beats Aldo? So, Aldo, he's surviving in this division, and I think it's great. I think it's great that he's surviving in this division and fighting the best guys. But I don't know, man. This is a great matchup, and there's nothing really else much to say about it, right? We just got to break this stuff.
Yeah, we'll break it down. I think that, the big thing as well is that these are two guys at the top of the division, right? Especially, Aldo, it's just amazing his longevity in the sport and that he's still competing at a high level. For Rob Font, a bit of a turnaround, right? He had a couple setbacks, and we'll get into those a little bit when we look at the resume here. But yeah, it's a pretty awesome fight. As far as the winner of this getting a title shot, it's possible. TJ Dillashaw's still out there. I think he might get the next crack at Saturday's winner, but we'll see. You never know with MMA. Things can always, timing is sort of a big thing when it comes to this stuff. All right, let's look at the tail of the tape here. Rob Font 34, Jose Aldo 35. I feel like that's not right. Let me just double check that real quick. I feel like Aldo 35? He is 35. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Maybe I'm losing my mind here. I feel like I swear the other day I saw he was 33, but anyways, 35, which if you think about it and how long he's been competing, he's not that old, so to speak. Rob Font 34. So age-wise, pretty similar. Aldo got a lot more miles on him. You can see the fights, 37 there for Aldo, just 23 for Rob Font. 30 wins compared to 19, 4 losses for Rob Font, 7 for Aldo. But, I mean, look who he's fighting. 8 knockouts, 16 knockouts for Aldo. That's a key stat here. So Aldo got double, the knockouts that Rob Font has. 4 submissions, 2 submissions for Aldo, and a finish rate of 60%. Rob Font's finish rate is actually higher at 64. Rob Font a little bit taller here at 5'8". 5'7" for Jose Aldo, 71.5 inch reach and 70 inch reach. So here's the great thing. Like, basically, physically, these guys are pretty similar. Experience-wise, you give the edge to Aldo. Damage-wise, though, you give the edge to Aldo as well in a bad way, right? Aldo's taken far more damage in his career than Rob Font has. And that's something I asked Tyson Chartier about when I spoke to him when this matchup was, being made was, do you think that's a factor? He doesn't think as much, but, also, it is one thing to consider in this fight is that Aldo has been finished a number of times. Rob has as well, but not to the level that Aldo has. If you look at some of the things that have happened there as well. So as far as the resumes, we're going to quickly look at it here. You look at it there. How did Aldo get this fight? Well, it's because he beat Pedro Munoz. Really key fight there. Dangerous fight for Aldo in a way because Munoz, not exactly a household name in the division, but a highly ranked guy and someone that is extremely talented in that weight class. Also beat Chito Vera before that. But you look at it before this, three fight losing streak. I don't think a lot of us thought Aldo would be back at the top here, potentially getting another crack at a title or at least being close to one after losing 3 in a row. Now, granted, one of those losses, Alex Volkanovski, last time I checked, that guy hasn't lost in the UFC. Marlon Moraes, a fight that a lot of people felt like Aldo did enough to edge the fight out, which is actually why he got the Petr Yan title fight anyways, was people did feel like he won, and that was enough to get him the shot. Lost to Yan. That fight, though, with Petr Yan, and I'll get your thoughts on this as well, actually pretty competitive to a certain point, and then it was like, as Yan does, he took over, right? And as he took over, Yan was able to get the 5th round finish. But still, the fact that he went 5 rounds with Petr Yan and did not get finished up until that 5th round, I think is very impressive for Aldo in his durability overall. Some other key wins here, Moicano, Stevens, obviously the losses to Holloway and McGregor. I mean, those are, guys that were in the prime, still in the prime of their career right now, those two guys. I think if McGregor and Aldo fought, that's one rematch I wish we could see. That's why I kind of wish that Aldo would have gone to 55. Maybe we could have saw that rematch with McGregor there, but that's for another podcast for another day. But extremely impressive for Jose Aldo. When you look, we'll go all the way down to the bottom here. He made his MMA debut in 2004. Like, it's pretty remarkable what he's been doing and still competing at a high level. And of course, the longtime reigning UFC/WEC featherweight champion, just a very storied career for Jose Aldo and still getting it done at 35 years of age. So just your thoughts on Jose Aldo and what he's been able to accomplish in his career.
He is the greatest featherweight of all time. I'm just going to say that right now. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I love Alex Volkanovski. I love Max Holloway, and they both did beat Aldo. But when you look at the resume and the longevity as the champion, no one can come close to Jose Aldo in that featherweight division. Man, I've been watching Jose Aldo since I think the WEC days when he double flying kneed Cub Swanson in the face.
Yeah.
I believe
8 seconds,
that's the first. Yeah, that's the first highlight I saw of him. And then after that, it was just like, what? In awe. You know what I mean? He was known for the leg kicks, right? He was known to be flashy, a lot of knees. And then when he would transition over to the UFC, he just carried on for years and years until, who came along? McGregor knocked him out in 13 seconds. But when I look at that, I felt like, man, he bounced back really well when he came back against Frankie Edgar at UFC 200 and dominated Frankie Edgar, to be honest with you. And then he just ran into the buzzsaw of Max Holloway. And you know what happened in those fights. And they came back and got back-to-back finishes. Remember those finishes? They were very emotional finishes for Aldo, because I felt like after losing 2 fights in a row to Holloway, his confidence and maybe his mentality, was a little battered, you know what I mean? And then he came back and did really well against both those guys. And then he just ran into another buzzsaw in Alex Volkanovski. Like you said, the Marlon fight, it was close. The Peter fight, I think Petr Yan, his fights are always very similar. It's kind of competitive at the start, and then he just takes over. And I think that's what happened. And Aldo did have some sick combinations, right, that he landed on Petr Yan. And maybe, Corey Sandhagen's looking at that fight and studying it real closely to see how he can beat Petr Yan. But with Aldo, man, he's on back-to-back unanimous decisions, very technical. Not many guys in the in the featherweight division are that technical. How many can you name? Maybe Max Holloway and Alex Volkanovski, right? There's not many other guys out there. So resume is Hall of Fame, greatest of all time featherweight ever. There's not much else to say, man. Rob Font has a huge opportunity against Jose Aldo. Yeah,
completely agree with that. Let's talk about Rob Font. I mentioned it there, a bit of a career turnaround in a certain regard, because there was a point where Rob was sort of this, middle of the pack bantamweight, and then he sort of put it together over the last couple fights. So let's start. Let's go all the way back to his UFC debut back in 2014. So you look at his actual pro debut, it was 2011. So we just talked about Aldo making his debut in 2004. Rob Font got a very late start compared to Aldo in 2011, which isn't that long ago if you think about it. Made his UFC debut, like I said, in 2014. Had a number of injuries and a bunch of other weird things happen, so he actually didn't have his second fight in the UFC till 2016. Again, kept losing key fights. Lineker, that was a key fight he lost. Munoz was a key fight he lost. Assunção was a key fight that he lost. There was a point where you started saying, kind of like we've seen with Dan Hooker in a way, and granted, we'll see how Saturday goes, but, you get that step up, you don't tend to come through. The Almeida win was good, but that was sort of the downfall of Almeida at that time. If you remember, he'd lost, I think, 2 fights leading into that, or 1 fight leading into that. And then after that, it's just been a nice roll. The Pettis win, a lot of people, might look at that and say, oh, well, this is a flyweight moving up. But you look at what he's doing in Bellator, Sergio Pettis, he's the current champ. I mean, that win has aged pretty well. Ricky Simone, not like a huge, like flashy win, but he dominated that fight. That was a very good win for him as well. And of course, the Marlon fight, that was one where, I mean, I remember, I think, previewing that fight or looking at that fight thinking, I don't know how this is going to go. Like, I know Marlon's, gone in the downfall a bit, but he's still got that power. Is he able to finish a Rob Font? And it was the other way around. It was Rob Font finishing Marlon Moraes very early. In fact, I think he did it faster than Sandhagen, or at least they were pretty similar in terms of how those finishes went. So really good win there over Moraes. And then, of course, Cody Garbrandt in the last fight. Again, dangerous opponent, really good striker, a boxer. And Rob Font just used that jab. And what we've seen with Rob Font over the last couple fights, and same with Calvin Kattar, is that evolution in the striking. Tyson Chartier, they've really honed in on that, and that's been one of Rob's biggest weapons in the weight class. That, and he's got a good build for the division. He's a tall, lanky guy, uses his range very well, and that's what's led to a lot of the success that he's had. But I think the Rob Font from 2018, 2017, that Rob Font doesn't exist anymore, and that's why he's getting the shot at Jose Aldo. So just your thoughts on Rob Font and sort of how he's been able to turn things around with this 4-fight win streak heading into this fight. Yeah,
he's a guy that I felt, for a while that he was just going to kind of balance in the wind. Beat certain guys. Stylistically, it's a better matchup for him. And then other guys, they would block him from entering that top 5. But, man, in his last 4 fights, he has been either extremely dominant or he has finished the fight. And like you said, Sergio Pettis is sitting at the top of the division at Bellator, and Rob Font dominated him. So does that mean Rob Font is the unheralded Bellator champion? Maybe, I don't know, I'm just saying. Sure. But Ricky Simone, that's a huge, I think Ricky Simone, a lot of people don't understand how like scrappy he is, man. He's a difficult fight for a lot of guys out there. They just remember the Uriah Faber knockout, and they just remember that. That's all they remember about Ricky Simone. But Ricky Simone can scrap, and Rob Font went in there and dominated him. Marlon, that was a great finish. I think he proved more in the Marlon fight. The reason why I say that is because he went in there and he went into the fire with Marlon, and he stuck around and he finished him, right? It was badass. And the Cody Garbrandt fight, oh my God. That was kind of like Rob Font's masterpiece. It was kind of like his masterpiece, right? It was just like, we didn't expect the fight to go exactly like that. You know what I mean? And Rob Font was very impressive of how he handled the speed of Garbrandt and used the jab, and the stand-up, like you said, has advanced so much in the last couple of years. Yes, I just hope he doesn't get plagued with injuries, you know what I mean, in the next coming years, because if he doesn't, he's going to be a top 5 guy for the next couple of years, man. I really believe that.
Let's look at the odds. I'm not sure if we have them yet, but if not, I know we can have a quick peek elsewhere. Let me just see on the site. I don't know if we have them, but here, if we go to best fight odds, you can kind of get an idea here of what the odds are right now. Oops, as I spelled font wrong. As I spelled font wrong again. Oh, do we not have odds? Okay, well, anyways, that's interesting that we don't actually have odds for this fight yet. If I had to guess what the odds are going to be, I think Aldo's going to be about a 2-1 favorite. If I had to guess, or it's going to be a case of maybe it's even closer, maybe it's like -150. But I'm pretty sure Jose Aldo is going to be the favorite in this fight just because of what he's accomplished. Former featherweight champion, losses to pretty much the top of the division, and level of opposition is very different in this case because Aldo certainly fought the better competition. Holloway, McGregor, Volkanovski. Font's fought no one on that level yet. The best win for Font is probably Garbrandt, and that guy's, he's gone down to flyweight. And I'm not discrediting Font, I'm just speaking about the optics of what we're sort of looking at here. So the fact that we don't have odds is interesting, but what is my pick for this fight? My pick's going to be Jose Aldo. I feel more comfortable picking Aldo, and this is something we talked about on a couple of the breakdowns as well. I think Aldo really hasn't lost a step. I think, like you mentioned, there was some school of thought of when he got knocked out by McGregor and lost to Holloway that he was done. But you look at the key wins that he's had since then, and we'll point them out one more time. The win over Frankie Edgar. That was a fight that I remember watching that thinking Edgar's probably going to win. Aldo's done. Well, he wasn't. He got the win there. Lost twice to Holloway. Came out, got 2 really nice wins over Moicano and Stevens. So much so that those guys both went up to lightweight shortly after that. Lost to Volkanovski. Like I said, close fight with Moraes, and then lost to the current champion, Petr Yan. Aldo's right there. If not, maybe he can make some adjustments and eventually win the title. I don't know. But I think with what Aldo's been able to do, there's more body of evidence showing that, his losses are against high-level guys. If you look at Font, granted, I don't think, he hasn't lost in his last 4, but I think if you look back, again, I don't think he's the same fighter he was back then, but does Rob Font beat a, Petr Yan? Does he beat him? Obviously beat Moraes. Does he beat a Volkanovski? No. Like, that's sort of what I'm getting at here, is that I think level of opposition is sort of the key factor here, is that Aldo, even though he has taken more damage, I think also Rob Font's not going to give him something he hasn't seen. Like, Max Holloway's got great striking. Conor McGregor's got great striking. Volkanovski's got great striking. So these are all guys that are on par, or if not maybe better, arguably better than Rob Font in terms of the striking battle. Rob Font's not going to take this to the ground. In fact, that's one of the areas I think he struggles a little bit. His only stoppage loss, Rob Font in his career, was actually against Pedro Munoz, and it was a submission loss. So I think if Aldo keeps it standing, I think they're going to stand and trade. And I think it's going to play out similarly to the Munoz fight, maybe a little bit closer, but I think it's going to be a case of where Aldo's striking is just a little bit better, and he's going to sort of take over as the fight goes. Remember, this is a 5-round fight, so that I actually think favors Jose Aldo because he has that championship experience already. So I'm going to take Jose Aldo by either a late finish or a decision, but it's going to be a close fight. Like, this to me could go either way. Does Rob Font have the ability to win? Yes. Maybe he's kicked it into another gear for this fight. Maybe his striking's even better than it was in the last fight, but you're beating a guy in Cody Garbrandt who, let's be honest here, I don't even know how he's going to do at flyweight. Marlon Moraes looks like he's on his way out. Some of those wins have not aged as gracefully as we'd like, but I'm going Jose Aldo in this fight. Who are you picking here, JHK?
Before I make my pick, I just have to point out, did you hear what James just said? The current champ, Petr Yan. Do you remember saying that?
Interim title, yes. You know what I mean. Yeah, title should be vacant. I've already spoken about this numerous times. Title should be vacant. Yan made the mistake.
I just want to say that. I think a lot of people say that, right? Just like unconsciously they just say that. But anyways, man, this is just a fun fight, man, because both guys are strikers. Rob, more of a boxer. Jose Aldo, more of a Muay Thai specialist. Man, they're just going to stand and trade, and it's just going to be a phenomenal. I don't even think it's going to be a fight. I think it's going to be a fight that we're going to be talking about, like we talked about the Cody Garbrandt Jose Aldo fight. I think these guys are going to go at it. They're going to go back and forth, but I do also feel that Jose Aldo is going to win this fight. I feel like Jose Aldo is just much more experienced, and he just has more weapons on the feet, right? Mm-hmm. And he has more power, I feel, than Rob Font does. Rob Font has less fights, has taken less damage, but Jose Aldo seems like his chin is still there, man. It doesn't seem like he just gets a little clipped and he gets stanky legged or rocked or nothing like that, right? He survived a beating from Petr Yan, and that was in the 4th and 5th rounds, right? And it just shows you that his chin is not gone. He's tough. He could take a punch. Rob Font also can take a pinch, but I think that the only problem with Jose Aldo that I always look at is his cardio, right? Is his cardio going to hold up? But I think it will, because these guys are going to stand and trade for the most of the rounds, right? They're not going to wrestle. I don't think Rob Font's going to try to take him down, and vice versa. So cardio is out the window. I don't think cardio is a factor. I think Jose Aldo, Rob Font go back and forth for 3 rounds, and then Jose Aldo takes over in the 4th round. And maybe he gets a finish in the 5th or the 4th, or he just gets a unanimous decision.
I do want to point out one more thing before you move on to questions. And by the way, keep the questions coming. We see them in the chat. We'll get to them as soon as we're done this. But there is the possibility, like I alluded to there, that maybe Rob Font looks better than we've seen him. Like, we have seen improvements every fight. So that is one thing to keep in mind. And I always bring up the Ortega example, right? When Ortega fought the Korean Zombie, no one thought that he was going to go out there and outstrike the Korean Zombie, but he did. Granted, Rob Font hasn't had the same sort of time off, but you get what I'm saying, is that every fight we could see a different version of that fighter. So just be wary of this, because again, Rob's one of those guys that learns quickly. I'll tell you a quick story about Rob Font. Talking to Tyson Chartier and just people sort of in the New England area about Rob Font, he was a guy that was kind of just training for fun, and then he sort of got into it. And I don't think there was a lot of expectations, unlike Kattar, where Rob Font would go on to be anything sort of great, because it was just sort of like a hobby for him, and he surprised a lot of people. And I think there was a point where Tyson said, okay, this guy's got something that maybe we didn't see early on, and that's where we've seen the progression. So it's just an unbelievable story for Font as well, for a guy that just, again, started his career in 2011 as a pro, and now here he is, 10 years later, fighting a legend in Jose Aldo. So it's pretty remarkable what he's been able to do over his career for a guy that, again, didn't have a lot of expectations sort of early on in his career. So again, Rob has the ability to win this fight. I just feel safer about picking Jose Aldo in the matchup.
Yeah, and Rob, if he does win, that's 5 in a row. He just beat a former champ of the division, and you're going to beat a former champ and a legend in Jose Aldo. Like, there was without a doubt, he would get a title shot next. I mean, whoever wins between Sandhagen and Jan, I don't know about Sterling. I don't even think he's going to fight this year. Or, I don't know, man. That division is it's a
complete mess.
It's a mess.
Again, hit that like button, hit the subscribe button. Make sure you download the Fantasy Fanatics MMA app. That's what we're going to be referencing later in the show. And stay till the end. We'll give our underdog picks for UFC 267. All right, let's get into the questions here. Antoine, what's up, boys? Hope y'all are good. I am good. I'm sure John's feeling the same way. By the way, John killing it with the content over there in Thailand. He's also been doing interviews. So shout out to you for getting it done. I wish I could travel, man, because I know it sucks sometimes because you're busy and you don't get a lot of sleep and all that, but it's fun to be traveling and everything else and getting content. You've been doing a great job with it. The Syed interview, highly recommend checking that out. He's a guy that doesn't do a lot of interviews either, so the fact that you were able to get him in that environment was great. So just wanted to give you a quick shout out there. But anyways, did you see they have Evlov versus Topuria? And if so, who do you guys have in that fight? I'm a little surprised they went that route, if I'm being honest. It's not 100% official. Red Fury is the outlet that's reporting it. They're a Russian outlet. Probably have an in with Evlov there. But if it is happening, awesome fight. I'm not saying it's not. I just wonder, like, these are two guys they should be building the division up and around, and it's kind of like, why are we getting these guys fighting each other now? But hey, maybe rankings-wise, I mean, it makes sense, whatever. Good fight. I don't know who I favor in that one, to be honest. Like, Topuria's looked really good in that last fight against Ryan Hall. I almost feel like that was a little bit more impressive than what Evlov's done, but then Evlov's looked great too, but it's just not the same competition. So I don't know. I kind of give a slight edge to Topuria, but I got to dig into that one a little bit deeper. But just your thoughts on the fight, John.
Well, in the interview that I did with Syed, he told me that Evloev had a fight booked or a fight signed for early next year, and then this news came out, so it makes sense. And then they're like promoting it. Evloev is promoting it, so that must mean that this fight is going to happen. Did Topuria win against Ryan Hall? Is it that great? Is it that big of a win, to be honest with you?
Well, considering the threat that Hall has on the ground, right? Like, I mean, the fact that he's been a guy that a lot of people have failed to solve that puzzle, and to beat him the way he did, like, he dominated that fight. No one's dominated Ryan Hall like that. Ryan Hall's had losses, but he hasn't had losses that bad, at least in the last couple of years. And granted, that's not saying much because he fights like once every 3 years, but you get what I'm saying. Like, I thought that was still pretty impressive. You want to go even before that? What was the other one he had? Was it Yusuf Zalal? I think he handed. I'm trying to remember the last one he had. Sorry, I'm going to check this out here. It was Hall. Damon Jackson. He finished in the first round. Mind you, Damon's been knocked out a few times. Zalal, that was the win. Yeah, because Zalal hadn't lost at that point. And I know he's lost a few since then, but still. And he had some good wins in Brave as well. He beat a couple. Good Cage Warriors Brave. He fought in there as well. So we'll see. Yeah, I mean it's an iffy one, right? Like I said, I got to dig into that one a little bit.
Yeah, because when you really go back, and I like Ryan Hall. He's a great interview too, man. I love talking to him. But man, when you look at his track record of like who he beat and how he beat them, it's almost like they didn't figure out the secret recipe, and Topuria knew it right when he went sign up for the fight. It's like, I just got to defend my legs and then pound this dude's face in. And that's what he did. He defended the legs and pounded his face in. The Darren Elkins fight and the BJ Penn fight and the Gray Maynard fight and Artem Lobov. Would you consider that a really good?
No, not at all. No, I just think the way he was able to, like, no one was able to figure him out. That to me was sort of interesting. Almost like, you look back at like Damian Maia's career early on. No one was able to solve that problem of his jiu-jitsu, right, to a certain point. So I kind of, sort of looked at it that way. But yeah, you make some good points there as well.
Yeah,
Antoine.
So both guys are undefeated, so it's going to be a great matchup. And I think the reason why they signed this fight is because both guys it's hard for them to get matched up. Nobody really wants to fight them right at this point, right? So it's going to be a great matchup. Yeah, go ahead.
Antoine says, what do you guys personally want to see the most on the pay-per-view this weekend? I think the co-main will be the fight of the night. By the way, I will be doing a live stream on Saturday. This guy, though, he's busy doing other content, so he won't be joining me, but it's a morning card, so make sure you tune into that. My main YouTube channel, I'll be doing a watch along. It's 7:30 a.m. here is when the pay-per-view starts, Pacific time, which I'm up anyways, but still, I mean, that's a little early, but what are you going to do? We'll see how the numbers are. But yeah, what fight am I looking forward to the most? I'm going to go off the wall. There's two fights I kind of have a tie, and neither of them are for the title. I mean, there's a lot of great cards on the pay-per-view. I'm really interested in this Chimaev and Lee fight. Really interested, because can Chimaev replicate what he did last year? Has COVID affected him? How's he going to look at 170? He's fighting like a seasoned veteran here in Li Jingliang, and the same guy who knocked out Ponzinibbio in his last fight. So I'm interested by that one. And of course, the Dan Hooker and Makhachev fight. Like that to me is like almost like the people's main event in a way. I know people want to see Jan and Glover and Sandhagen Piotr Jan's an amazing fight as well, but I'm just intrigued by that, because what if Hooker can do it? What if he could land that knee, that shot, and just totally derail this whole, Islam Makhachev's a future champion? Or does Islam go out there and dominate, and maybe it's time for him to get the title shot, or at least be close to it, or whatever? I don't know. So those are the two fights I think I'm the most intrigued by on 267. What about you? Yeah,
those are some obvious picks, right? Like the Hooker, Makhachev, the Lee, Hamza Chimaev. But the fights that I'm looking forward to the most, and I don't know if I'm looking forward to, but that are very intriguing to see, like, where these fighters will go after this fight, is the Ribas versus Jandiroba fight. Yeah. And I wonder what happens to Ribas. Can she go in there and get a win after suffering that devastating loss in her last fight? And Jandiroba too, man, is she that good? To the point where she could go in there and submit Ribas and move further into the rankings. So I'm interested in that fight. And the other fight that is interesting to me is Laurent Murphy versus Machwan Amir Khan. I think that's the sleeper fight of the night right there, because Laurent can come out and just crush dudes, and Amir Khan, he's a wild man. You don't know what to expect from him, and he's tough as hell. So if he gives him a beating, he can take a beating. And I think his neck is probably on the chopping block too with this fight.
100%. And I think people forget that. And remember all the hype that Amir Khan had coming into the UFC, and the run he went on early on. Like, I think that's all gone for a variety of reasons. I mean, him losing is part of it, but also just like, he doesn't do much media. He's not, remember, he's like demanding, I'm only going to fight again if it's in Finland. It's like, I don't know. So
he's an SGB guy, right?
He is. Yeah. So that's another interesting thing, right? Because Laurent Murphy's a UK guy as well. I think he trains with Leon Edwards or that team. I could be wrong about that.
No, he trains with Manchester top.
Oh, man. Oh, you're right. You know what? I was thinking of Jai Herbert, who's a lightweight who won last week.
It's like Mohamed Makhachev. Like,
yes, exactly. Yeah. Our favorite prospect interview, who's going to be in the UFC soon, by the way. We're excited for that. James, Dana said that Adesanya Whitaker 2 will not take place in Canada or Seattle. Where will the rematch happen? So Aaron Bronstetter put out a tweet saying that that's what they were leaning towards, was Canada or Seattle. He then came out and said, well, that's not the specific date. I think Seattle's a no-brainer for the UFC to do a card there, because they have the new arena, and the new hockey team, the Kraken, which, by the way, they lost on Saturday to my Canucks, which was great. I got the Canucks at plus money, just saying. But no, I think Seattle's going to be a destination. I don't think they do that fight there, though. I think that will be lower on the list, though, for because I don't know if they want to do that one in Vegas per se. That's more of like an international fight. Obviously, they can't do it in New Zealand or Australia because of the COVID restrictions right now. So I don't know. I have no insight as to where they're going to do the card. Aaron is about as close as you can get, because he works for the TV partner of the UFC here in Canada. So he gets all the insights. So I don't have any insight onto that, unfortunately, but just follow Aaron. He's probably, getting updates on that.
I'd say this fight happens on Fight Island.
Yeah, it would make more sense, I think, to do it there than somewhere in North America.
And you remember that policy that they had, like, when fighters come to the US, they have to be vaccinated, probably as well as their coaches or whoever they bring along with them. And that's going to cause a lot of problems, with matchmaking. So I think Dana White said in the press conference that Fight Island is going to be a lot more busier starting next year when that policy goes into effect. So we'll probably see this fight on Fight Island, and we'll probably see a bunch of city kickboxing fighters. There's one city kickboxing fighter who's signed to the UFC. He hasn't even debuted yet. So I wonder when that's going to happen. Blood Diamond.
Oh, okay. Gotcha. I don't know who that is, but I'll keep tabs. Have you been watching the Contender Series this season, and who should we be excited about? Okay, so a couple things about this. I love prospect interviews. So does John. We do that all the time. I don't watch a lot of the Contender Series live just because of the time slot. It's Tuesday night. My kid's got he's in this ninja class, and I'm on Pacific time. So it actually airs at 4 in the afternoon here, 4 or 5 in the afternoon. or evening, afternoon. And so usually I'll PVR it and I'll catch up later. I've been watching most of it. I still need to catch up on a few fights, but obviously I've done, done my homework as far as who's gotten signed and stuff. But as far as fighters, we have a Contender Series fighter actually fighting this on this card coming up here. Who's the Russian guy? What's his name? He's fighting this Saturday. So yeah, as far as like fighters to be excited about, I'm actually interested in tonight's Contender Series, the Javad Bashrat, who are Javad, I always forget, Javid, it might even be Javid Bashrat, the guy who you saw that yesterday at the weigh-ins, I know you tweeted it or saw it, about his opponent calling him the T word, which he should never use. But
I heard he said something to him before that, which was
either way. In this climate, man, you can't say stuff like that. Like
no, but what he said before that was
even worse.
Racist. Yeah, it was like something that was racist. This is what I heard. Because when I listened to the video, I can't hear anything.
You can't hear it. I know. I think they posted something on Javid's Instagram after that to sort of see. But I actually spoke to him last week. Just did a quick interview with him or whatever. Really, really interesting guy. But yeah, I know a lot of people will be rooting for him because of that, because there's no place for that in the sport. And look, I'm the last guy to be politically correct, but there's certain things you can't say, and that's one of them. So so anyways, I'm excited for him tonight on the card. How will Aldo's cardio hold up for 5 rounds at 135? And Font is underrated. I wouldn't say Font's underrated if he's getting this shot, and also the fact that, like we mentioned, he was given the title shot, right? And Aldo's cardio will be fine. I mean, he was a champion for, go back and look at, granted 135 is a different animal, but the fact that he even went 5 rounds with Piotr Jan, I think is proof that his cardio is fine. I don't even think that's an issue at all. He's fine at 135. I'm actually quite surprised. I thought when he made the drop, I was like, ugh, this is going to be like tough for him. Cause I'd love to look up the stats. Someone's probably got it out there of fighters that move down a weight class as they get older. It doesn't typically go well. So yeah, I think he'll be fine though. What do you think?
Yeah, in the Piotr Jan fight, his cardio held up really well. He just took too much damage. That's all it was. If you're taking that many punches to the face, of course you're not going to look 100%. But yeah, I think his cardio will be fine. Also, it's a stand-up matchup. When he wrestles, I feel like those fighters drained him a lot in the later rounds. But Font, not going to happen. I don't think so. Unless Font comes out and starts wrestling and he's just like, what happened? Like Dan Hooker did in his last fight.
Yeah. All right. CM Hawk has a number of different questions. We'll try and get through these as soon as we can. We do appreciate the questions, but we got to keep the variety going here as well. Thoughts on Tybura versus Blades if he beats Volkov? Probably an option. Curtis Blades, he's running out of opponents to fight because he's beat all of them except for Lewis and Ngannou. So, yeah, I think that's a possibility if Tybura wins. I don't think Tybura wins, though, but we'll talk about that later. Your thoughts?
I wish Curtis Blades would go to Bellator, to be honest with you, and go become the champ over there, like how Corey Anderson's doing it now, man. I love seeing Corey Anderson over at Bellator, to be honest with you. Like, he's doing great. He just smashed Ryan Bader. Did you pick Ryan Bader to win that fight?
Pick Ryan Bader. Yeah, we were both wrong on that.
Me too. Yeah, I picked him too. I was like, nah, Ryan Bader, but it seems like Ryan Bader's fading now, man. Maybe age has caught up to him, but Corey Anderson is in his prime. And I think he's going to probably end up most likely holding that belt some point in the future, like near future. He has a tough task, but yeah, man, Blades. Imagine Blades over there at heavyweight. He would dominate.
Blades is very good. I think right now I feel comfortable saying this. I think Blades has the best wrestling in that weight class. I think to stop a takedown from him and just his build and everything, he's outstanding. And just, you saw what he did to Rosenstruck in his last fight. He looked great. Thoughts on Collier versus Sherman? Yeah, loser leaves town match. Not much to say about that fight. Yeah, I know. I'm not going to address that. Obviously, tongue in cheek there. What do you think about Latifi and Martin Budet's first UFC opponent? Is Latifi's ranked? Is he not?
No way. He's fighting Martin Budet?
Oh no, he's saying what if? No, he's saying what if that was the fight?
No,
I don't think they're fighting each other.
No what ifs. Let's go.
No, anyways, yeah. Let's keep it moving here. Question for John. Thoughts on the Iron Turtles' performance last Saturday? I thought he was going to win.
Yeah, I thought he was going to win too. But man, RoboCop is RoboCop. Like, he just marched forward. That second round was like one of the best rounds, I think, of the year, right?
Yeah.
Could you agree? Like, what other? There's a couple other rounds, right? But that was a good fight. I thought he did well. Man, he's still developing. He's still a young fighter, man. I don't think, I think that's only his second loss in the UFC. I think he's like 3-2. So, just give him some time. Korean fighters, got to give him time.
Thoughts on Choi's performance against Caceres? Man, I think that was his fight to win, and he couldn't get it done.
It.
It's funny.
Don't you notice with him, even with the Gavin Tucker fight, The dude cannot defend against chokes. He got choked out by Gavin Tucker too, and wrestled. And in this one, Caceres doesn't wrestle, but he can grab you with submissions real quick. And Choi, he did really well in the first round. He has excellent striking, but man, he needs to work on his ground, you know, a lot. Like Caceres did it. It was so easy for him, it seemed like, didn't it? And he was kneed in the head illegally, right? Yeah. Like before that. Right?
Yeah, so I do the I think I mentioned this on last week's show. I do the UFC Pros Pick show now with James Krause and Nick Kalikas, and Krause was like, that was his most confident pick was Choi, and I was like, yeah, I can see it, right? Like this guy's great, and then he just blew it, man. Like that's a loss that will probably haunt him for a while, because that was the fight I think that would have got him a much more notable. Caceres is the guy you fight to get to that next big fight, and he failed the test, unfortunately. So there we go. Is Daeun Jung Korea's best prospect to break into the rankings right now?
Yes, he is. He is.
Yeah, I would agree with that too. Most memorable stanky chicken leg dance in UFC history. Probably Kevin Lee and Edson Barbosa. That's one that definitely comes to mind. Kevin Lee was like, you know, even though he lost.
Rashad Evans.
Rashad Evans as well. Yeah.
That one was worse because he did get knocked out. And then he did the, you know, the backwards, like his leg was folded underneath him. So that was pretty wild. But yeah, Kevin Lee was like really a chicken dance. Stanky leg for sure.
Aldo should backpack him and hurt that rear naked path of least resistance. You know, that's not a bad game plan, to be honest. I mean, Aldo probably, I think, would still win the striking as well. But, you know, Font really hasn't been tested on the ground. You look at the last couple fights, not a lot of jiu-jitsu guys in there. It might not be a bad idea. Like Cody Garbrandt was not going to take him down and try and choke out Rob Font. He was going to try and knock his head off. Aldo, maybe you look at that, but that's not really Aldo either. Aldo's a guy, hey, I'll do whatever I want. I'm Jose Aldo, right? So
yeah, that's gonna be. I don't think there's gonna be much grappling in that fight, but you know, you never know. But Aldo, man, even if it is the path of least resistance, Aldo just wants to knock your head off, just like Cody Garbrandt does.
Which weapon can be more useful, Rob's jab or Aldo's leg kicks? Aldo's leg kicks.
Yeah, because they have a much more effect on your movement.
It's like hitting a tree. That's what it's like.
But Rob's jab is looking nice, though. I got to give him credit for that.
Here's a fact about Rob Font. He's undefeated fighting in December in the UFC. Put some respect on his name. I don't know if you're joking here, but man, I get so annoyed when like you pick like, or you mention like how a fighter has the ability to win a fight or how they're good, and then people still aren't satisfied with that. I'm dealing with this on my preview show this week. I talked about the Makhachev and Hooker fight. Obviously, I picked Makhachev, but I got people like, you underrate, you hate Muslim fighters, you're underrating them. It's like, I picked him, and that's not good enough because I didn't say he was going to smoke him. Like, come on, people. Let's get a little realistic here. Sensitive MMA fans. I know, Joseph, you're not being like that, but sensitive MMA fans are probably the most annoying thing I have to deal with on a regular basis. It's like, I picked your guy, but it's not good enough. How do you see Gillespie? Oh, sorry.
I love that he has that just odd fact that he's undefeated in December. Like, he saw that.
Well,
like,
he doesn't. I mean,
I
Rob
love
hasn't.
that.
Yeah, he's had a lot of gaps in between fights, so it's probably not hard to track. How do you see Gillespie RDA matchup playing out? Gillespie decision. I don't think RDA is as good as people think he is. No, I think I think he's talking that potential matchup.
Okay.
Yeah, we would have seen this.
Yeah, I don't know, man. RDA, everybody underestimates him, and he comes back and wins.
But he beat it. I mean, I like RDA. Great career, former lightweight champion. The performance he put against, Pettis and so many other guys is, not something to sneeze at. But he just beat Paul Felder, who was like literally coming off, a layoff and, semi-retirement, and he just beat him. And, everyone thinks that he's back, but it's like, I don't know. Like, I don't know how good he is. I think with his age and the damage he's taken, RDA is, I think he's probably the gatekeeper in that division. If I'm being fair, like if you're looking at the rankings right now, okay, let's look at lightweight. We're looking at lightweight right now. And again, I'm not trying to pile on the guy here. Does Dan Hooker beat RDA? I think he would. Actually, sorry, RDA is 8th. So ahead of him, I think Ferguson at this point, I mean, you're not getting much with him. I think that rematch would be kind of competitive. I think Hooker can beat RDA. I know Makhachev would beat him. I know Chandler, Dariush, Gaethje, Poirier would all beat him. Would Gillespie beat him? Possible. Ferreira, probably not. I think anything below there, that would be different. But I think RDA being right dab in the middle, so to speak, I think that's where I think a lot of guys ahead of him would beat him. Maybe I'm wrong.
Man, when I see RDA, it just reminds me of that song from Cher, Do You Believe? And I believe, RDA. I'm going to support you until you lose. But Gillespie, I don't know, man. I still think I'm on the fence still with Gillespie. He's a good fighter and he's a great wrestler, but I just haven't seen that breakout performance. Have you seen a breakout performance from him yet? Like, you really think like he's a top 5 fighter?
No, like he needs to step up for sure. I mean, he had to step up against Kevin Lee, and we all know how that went. But I just think his wrestling and his pressure and so many things that he does is just so like a lot of guys can't deal with that. Remember the Yancy Medeiros fight? He couldn't even like gasp for air because he kept getting taken down so much. And granted, Yancy's no longer in the UFC, but I just think that it's very interesting to see, you know, how he would do. That's why I've wanted to see him in Islam for a while, and obviously Islam's way ahead of him at this point because of activity and a variety of other reasons. But he's up there. We'll see. I think the RDA Gillespie fight actually makes a lot of sense here. Does RDA want that fight? Maybe not. No real name value there, fighting a lower ranked opponent. But you know, a lot of these guys are going to have to fight, right? So we'll see. How would Costa do at 205? I don't even know. Like that. I mean, granted, we ended up getting a good main event in that fight, and he definitely landed some good shots on Marvin Vettori. But I don't know. I don't think Costa. I think Costa. I don't know. I'm so confused at what Costa is at this point, because like the whole week was bizarre. He says he had an injury. I also, you know, there's some rumors about him not being happy with his contract, so that's kind of why he didn't take anything seriously. Like, what are you getting with Costa at this point? The Costa that fought Yoel Romero, does that exist? I don't know. I'm not sure, because he got absolutely outclassed by Adesanya, and I do wonder that, you know, there's some school of thought as well. Has him losing to Adesanya, has that impacted his ability to be the type of fighter he was prior to that? I don't know. So how would he do at 205? I have no idea. I honestly don't. I do know that when you move up a weight class, typically the power does not translate as it does in the previous weight class. Prime example, Conor McGregor, right? Conor McGregor has, I think, one finish at 155, and that's Alvarez, right? Outside of that, Cerrone was at 170, and yeah, he's lost everyone else. So there you go.
But when you look at that 205 division, there's a lot of guys that move up from 185 that were top 10 fighters. You know, you got Anthony Smith, you got Thiago Santos. Who else moved up from 185?
Those are the only two, and then Serkinov moved down.
Yes, and then Luke Rockhold moved up, not very successful with that. But when you look at Costa, and they fought at 205, right? Him and Vettori.
Yeah.
And you just look at that fight, I don't know if he's going to do very well at 205.
No,
it doesn't. I don't think there's going to be a size advantage, a power advantage. He's not a grappler. We've never seen him really grapple anybody. He just stands and bangs. If he goes out there and stands and bangs with like, you know, even a Johnny Walker, right? That would be a good fight. Let's put that together.
Yeah,
Johnny Walker
actually, we have a couple suggestions here for Walker's first opponent, and we'll get to that as we're moving along through the questions here. I love Topuria versus Evlov. Couldn't make more sense to me. Absolutely the fight to make. One guy moves forward, one guy takes a step up in newcomers. Again, rankings wise, it makes sense. I just think these are two guys that you're trying to build up in the division. Why put them against each other? But we've seen that time and time again with the UFC matchmaking. I always bring up the Grant Dawson and Mike Trezano fight at featherweight. It was like, here are two guys that are clearly, you know, up and comers, and they want to see who the better fighter is. So yeah, you might be right about that. I watched Evlov's manager interview, and he said that so that was the interview you watched was with JHK. It's Evlov's manager Syed, is it not?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay, there we go. Plus, according to MMA Fighting, Emmett versus Allen was in the works, but Allen had a hand injury. Well, there you go.
What was that, like 10 years ago?
Yeah. Yeah, no, I think it might have been something. I don't know. I don't know what happened with Arnold Allen, but it's now Ige and Josh Emmett.
Yeah, I think that's a better fight. I think that's better matchmaking right there.
If Nunes beats Pena, it's Shevchenko or bust for the winner of the November 20 fight. I don't know. It seems like I know Dana's sort of warming. Yeah, we do need that fight. And I know people will say, well, Amanda beat her twice. But yeah, that second fight was close. And yeah, I don't know. Like, I think, yeah, we got to see that. We got to see it before Amanda retires. We got to do one more fight with her and Shevchenko.
Shevchenko is going to, I think she's just going to fight and continue to fight. I think she's not going to retire. And Nunes, she's hinted at retirement, right? So before Nunes retires, they need to make that fight. They need to put that fight together, you know, for the fans at least.
I think Rakhmanov's next opponent is Carlton Harris. Thoughts?
I mean, a good fight.
Yeah, I think that's the right man. Who I was going to say, Rube, does he manage him? I was trying to remember who's his manager because he's not with Ali.
Syed.
Oh, he is with Syed. Okay, good. That's an interview I should try.
I asked him about Rakhmonov, right? And he said Rakhmonov he signed a fight for early next year.
That's right.
So
I do
it
remember
should be
that. Yeah.
announced.
Okay, yeah. I don't know why I forgot that in the interview, but whatever. What are you going to do? Take it or leave it. Nate Diaz fights Jake Paul in 2022. I'll take it. I've talked about this for a while. I told you guys, if you remember and been watching my shows for a while, that the Diaz brothers are going to fight out their contracts and then they're going to go do this YouTube boxing thing. I'm telling you, it's easy money for them. And even if they lose, who cares? They're the Diaz brothers. They're draws. Dana's like, I got one fight in the works for Diaz. Diaz is like, get me out of here. I want to go make some real money. I want to go elsewhere. They're seeing what's going on with Triller. And, again, I mentioned something earlier this year. I know Canelo Alvarez got in touch with them and they've been doing some training together. There's, they say what you want about the Diaz brothers, but business wise, they are very smart. And I think you're going to see them go do the boxing thing if I had to take a guess. So yes, I think that's absolutely possible. And I know there's a little tidbit thrown out there about the Jake Paul thing, but that makes total sense. So yeah.
Well, James, you speaking the truth because you know why? Because you have been saying that for a long time that they're going to fight out their contract, and right now at this moment, Dana White, revealed to us this is the last fight on his contract, and I'm feeling like, and I don't know if I said this to you before, but I think I said this earlier in another podcast where I feel like the UFC they're going to try to lock him down for like 8 more fights, like they did to Anderson Silva. You know what I mean? Yeah. Until like he retires, he's going to be with the UFC. And that's why it's hard for them to get a fight put together for Nate Diaz, because Nate Diaz probably doesn't want to sign a 8-fight extension or even a 4-fight extension. He wants to just fight his last fight and leave. And the UFC doesn't want him to leave because he's a cash cow for them. And even Nick Diaz, I think he's a cash cow for them. I mean, he's proven that, right? A lot of attention was on Nick Diaz when he returned. So I want to see Nate Diaz leave the UFC because he's not competitive anymore.
I know. And he's not a title challenger. No, you're not wrong. You'd say that even before that.
Yeah, it's just like he's not competitive anymore. He'll get beat by the top 15 fighters, right? He might, have a decent war with them, but I still think he loses to most of those guys. And I would like to see him go over there and make buku bucks, fighting Jake Paul, fighting Logan. Do you see Logan Paul versus Mike Tyson?
I did see that.
What's the world going to right now?
Yeah, that's too much for me. I don't really have an interest.
What's next? Nick Diaz versus Mike Tyson?
Probably, yeah.
I'll watch it.
Let's get up our underdog picks quickly, and then we'll wrap things up here. We always got to wrap up a little bit earlier on the show, unfortunately, because of my kid goes to school at the top of the hour, so I got to be a good dad and all that. Let's get to the odds here. Okay, so let's get to the UFC underdog picks. So I think on my show on Monday, I didn't pick any underdogs, but I'll pick one here. Let me see. I will go with... That's a dramatic pause, by the way. I was doing there. You know what? Screw it. I'm going to go Volkan Ozdemir for the upset over Ankalaev. I think this is a classic case of where people are overrating the level of competition for Ankalaev. You got a couple wins over, Kutalaba, and then you got a win over, Krylov in his last fight. But Ozdemir, he's losing to really good guys. And in fact, some of those losses you could have gone the other way. The Reyes fight, there's a few others. He's had a lot of time off. He just lost to Yuri, who last time I checked is the backup for this title fight. I think I'll pick him just because it's this show, whatever, but there's definitely value on Ozdemir at plus 260. I don't know. I think this is a fight where a lot of people are overlooking Ozdemir, and if he can weather the storm and not get finished and he plays a smart game, I think he has the ability to win, because this is one thing with Ozdemir that we saw in the Rakic fight and the Reyes fight. He can make fights close, and there's a possibility that he can make this very close. So bold prediction here. I'm going to Ozdemir with the upset at plus 260.
Amanda Ribas is favored. Man, yes. I'm gonna have to take John DeRoba.
That was one I was looking at too. Yeah.
Yeah, I think I'm gonna
be a little bit more bold here.
I think that's a good underdog pick right there. And I'm gonna look at one more. I'm gonna look at Glover Teixeira.
Yeah, that was one too. I was thinking
plus 240 underdog against Jan Blachowicz. I think that's a 50-50 fight right there. And if they're gonna give you plus 240 for Teixeira, man, I would take it. I would put a couple bucks on that. And there's a lot of enticing bets, right? Even like the Dan Hooker plus 440, that's an enticing bet right there to a lot of people. And even like the Li Jing Lian plus 370, that's an enticing bet too.
Dan Hooker wins by knockout TKO plus 850.
Yeah,
why not? The stab. Islam's been knocked out before. What's Li Jing Liang by knockout? I was curious with that. Just for the hell of it. Plus 550. Okay, you might as well just take him straight up. It's not a huge difference, but yeah. Anyways, so yeah, that's what we got going on. Those are our underdog picks of the week. Again, that's just our opinion. Don't come after us if we're wrong. I still got to put my picks in the app. Haven't done that yet. Let's get a few more questions.
James, I've been getting attacked about like, why aren't you a technical analysis of the fight? And I'm like, dude, I'm not a technical analysis. Go fucking watch Dan Hardy or what is it? What are those guys?
Jack Slack or any of those guys?
Yeah. You want technical?
I'm the same way. I don't have time to break down film because you know why? I'm doing 50, 60 interviews a month. So is he. That's why I always have to tell people that. And I even have to say that on my preview show. I'm like, look, I'm doing the show so you guys can get a little bit of tidbits from the fighters I've interviewed. That's it. But don't come to me and say, oh, I had some guy complaining about my record. It's like, I don't even keep track of my record. I do this for fun. I do this for the people. I'm not a betting expert. I'm not anything like that. I just give my opinion. And you don't have to take it. It's free.
It's so funny that someone is keeping track of your record and you don't even keep track of your record.
I know. Like, I don't care. Funny. It's like, I'm just going off whatever. And I try and make a couple, every now and then I'll make a couple.
You just try to make it fun, man. You just try to give some information and make it fun.
Because people want to do that. And so they haven't figured out a way to do it. So their way of like dealing with that is, I know they can do it. Just make a YouTube channel.
Exactly. I don't understand. Like,
okay, let's zoom through these last couple ones and then we'll wrap things up. And if you guys have questions, just hit us up on Twitter or on this channel and ask us in the description. Yes, Marvin's strike has no pop in them. Didn't you guys think that during the fight? I mean, he hit Costa so many times, arm strikes, but I think Costa landed. You could hear it, see it in effect. Of course, it's not rocket science. Paulo Costa has more power. Vittori, who's he finished by knockout? Like no one. Thoughts on Dana saying Kayla's fighting cans while Nunes hasn't fought a legit opponent in years? I think that's his way of trying to get less money out of Kayla when they do sign her. Kayla's coming to the UFC. Make no mistake about it. Are Kayla Harrison and Clarissa Shields locked for PFL? Are they more competitive than we think? Harrison's probably as close to a lock, but she's like minus 500. Why would you even bet that? Clarissa Shields, I don't know. Like that debut, she did not. I mean, she won, but there was a little bit of adversity early on. I would not bet any Clarissa Shields fight at this point. We need to see more. And they're talking about her going in the tournament next year. What are they thinking? Keep getting one-off fights like this. Don't put her in the tournament. That's a terrible idea because she'll lose and then her stock goes down. Yeah, I don't think that's a good idea. Imagine her and what Julia Budd would do to her.
Yeah. Well, I think what they're doing is they're going to dangle Clarissa Shields and all this money in front of Kayla Harrison.
Probably, yeah.
It's like, you could fight this mega boxer superstar and you could make another $1 million and we're going to pay this much money. And I wouldn't be surprised if Kayla Harrison stayed with the PFL. I wouldn't be surprised at all. You know what I mean?
Saying that though, I will mention this, and Adam Martin brought up a good point. Like we got the PFL finals, this weekend?
Yeah.
A lot of people are talking about it, and I think, I don't know how you fix that. I don't know if it's that you need more, like they do a lot of good media stuff. Like, and they're actually, I'll say this, and I'm sure you can agree with me here. They're probably one of the easiest promotions to work with in terms of media access and all that, at least from my vantage point there. There's a lot of access. They have a good video team. The presentation's good. I don't know what it is. I think it's, and you re-sign Kayla, there gets kind of be that Demetrius Johnson thing where people kind of get bored of, her destroying opponents, right? Like, I don't know. So I think there's that, and there's just, there's no, like, I can't think of a single fighter on the roster right now, other than maybe Clarissa or Kayla, that are like good personalities that you're like, oh, I got to see what he says next, like a Colby or like a Conor McGregor type. You know what I mean? Like someone that really like stands out in that regard. I haven't seen anyone yet. Maybe there just isn't one, but that's the whole reason a lot of these fighters go there, is it's based off merit. It's not based off who talks the best thing there. So there we go.
With Kayla, I think that she is the face of the PFL. For her to leave and go to the UFC, it's going to be a big blow to the PFL, because like this whole experiment that they did of signing these UFC former champions or, well-known fighters, I felt like they thought that those fighters would go to the finals in each of their category. Like Verdum would go at the heavyweight finals, Pettis in the lightweight finals, and Roy McDonald in the welterweight finals. None of that happened, right? So do you think it would be different if those guys were in the finals right now? They were about to fight. There would be a lot more attention on
big PFL, time,
right?
Yeah.
So absolutely. I think that experiment just blew up in their face, basically.
All right, everyone. We got to end the show here a little bit early, like we mentioned. If you have questions, either post them in the comments, hit us up on Twitter. We're both very accessible here. You can follow me on Twitter at Lynch on Sports. Follow him at JHK MMA. Download the Fantasy Fanatics MMA app. Hit the like button. Hit the subscribe button. JHK, anything you got coming up this week that you want to mention? I'm having kind of a lighter week, which is fine by me because I need those every once in a while. But what's going on with you?
Man, you got to live your life, man. Do your thing. I got just a few UFC 257 interviews. Actually, I'm dropping my Dan Hooker interview. It's already, you could go in there, SCMP, and find it. And the article's out there on the website. And everything else, you could go to JHK MMA and check it out.
There you go. And I interviewed Chris Curtis yesterday. That was a cool interview, just talking about how he ended up getting re-signed to the UFC. If you remember, he had the fight with Phil Hawes, lost it. Hawes didn't want to fight. Then they rebooked it, and he got a 4-fight UFC contract. That's about it, though. No big guests this week. Just, kind of doing my thing. Did a bunch of regional interviews this week, but that's kind of my bread and butter as well. Thanks so much for watching. We'll see you guys next week. Same time, same channel, everything else, previewing another upcoming notable fight. And also, let us know if there's a fight you guys want us to preview. We try and preview all the big ones, but maybe there's one that isn't as big that we're missing or whatever. Maybe something from another promotion. I don't know. We'll think about that, but let us know. Follow us on social media, and have a great rest of your day. We'll see you all soon. We'll see you a week today. Have a good one.